Welcome back. That period around the end of September, well, it's always a pressure cooker on Capitol Hill. But looking at the legislative records from September 29th right through October 1st, you really see a specific kind of scramble. We're jumping straight into that intense final push leading up to and then spilling over the September 30th fiscal year deadline. Our goal today isn't just to list votes. We want to unpack the strategy. Look at the key actions, the thinking behind these funding fights, and some important personnel moves that were happening right in the middle of it all last week. And before we get into the details, if you find this useful, please take just a second to like and subscribe. It really helps us keep bringing this analysis to you.
Yeah, and what's striking when you look at this time frame is how the threat of a government shutdown just dominated everything in the Senate. It was the central conflict, the main driver of the schedule.
Absolutely, the Damocles sword hanging over everything.
Right. Every vote, every procedural tangle, it was all part of this high-stakes negotiation with the clock ticking.
Okay, let's get into the thick of it, those last 48 hours in the Senate. When Congress is trying to pass these stopgap funding measures, continuing appropriations, they call them, it's not just about getting a simple majority.
No, exactly. Because these bills can be debated indefinitely under Senate rules, you need 60 votes. That's the critical threshold to overcome things like a filibuster to actually get to a final vote.
And that 60-vote hurdle, well, it proved to be a brick wall, repeatedly, right up against the deadline.
It really did. We saw them try two main routes, two different pieces of legislation to keep the government funded.
First up was the Senate's own bill, right? Senate Resolution 2882, the Continuing Appropriations and Extensions and Other Matters Act.
That's the one. They started considering it on Monday, September 29th. And right away, they filed the motion to cut off debate that's cloture, setting up a potential vote for Wednesday, October 1st.
But the real action was Tuesday, September 30th, deadline day.
They brought Senate Resolution 2882 back up for reconsideration, trying to pass it, and it failed.
What was the vote count on that one?
It was 47 yeas to 53 nays. So, well short, 13 votes shy of hitting that 60-vote mark.
Oof. Okay, so Plan A didn't work, but they usually have a backup, often something from the House.
Correct. Standard playbook, they immediately turned to House Resolution 5371, the Continuing Appropriations and Extensions Act.
And did switching to the House bill magically find them the votes they needed?
Well, it found some more votes, but crucially, not enough. House Resolution 5371 hit the exact same wall on the very same day.
Failed on reconsideration, too.
Yep. Failed on reconsideration September 30th. The vote there was 55 yeas to 45 nays.
Okay, wait. 55 votes? That's 8 more than the Senate bill got.
It is. And that difference tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it suggests the House version was, let's say, less objectionable to at least a few key senators. Maybe something specific in the Senate bill, S-2882, was actively pushing away potential support.
That's a very likely interpretation. Policy writers, maybe spending levels, something in the Senate's version was a deal breaker for about 4 pairs of senators who were willing to vote yes on the House version.
But politically, the outcome was identical.
Identical. Neither bill got the 60 votes needed. So when the clock struck midnight on September 30th, funding lapsed. The new fiscal year began October 1st, with no guarantee of money to keep things running.
And the Senate schedule for October 1st just reflected that failure, right? They had to schedule more votes.
Exactly. They had no choice but to schedule more cloture votes, just trying to get back to considering those same 2 bills again. Still stuck in the same procedural loop, just on the other side of the deadline.
All right, so if these short-term fixes kept failing because of the 60-vote rule, you'd think maybe someone would try to, prevent this whole drama from happening every year.
You would think so. And there was an attempt during this exact same pressured window to do just that, a structural fix.
The Eliminate Shutdowns Act, Senate Resolution 2806.
That's the one. A pretty straightforward idea, really. It proposed automatic continuing appropriations. If Congress didn't pass funding by the deadline, this would just kick in automatically, keep the government open at current levels.
Takes the shutdown threat off the table entirely.
Right. Removes the leverage.
And how did that go over?
Like a lead balloon. On Monday, September 29th, the Senate voted on cloture again. Just the vote to allow debate on proceeding to the bill. And that cloture motion was rejected, decisively.
What was the vote?
37 yeas to 61 nays.
Wow, 37 to 61 against even debating a bill to stop shutdowns. That's quite a statement.
It's a huge statement. It tells you that the ability to threaten a shutdown, or actually cause one, is seen by many as crucial negotiating leverage.
They want to keep that tool in the toolbox.
Precisely. 61 senators voted, effectively, to preserve the option of brinkmanship. They showed they're unwilling to give up that pressure point.
Because if funding just happened automatically?
And the urgency to pass the big, difficult annual spending bills or to force concessions on other policy issues, well, it diminishes significantly.
Interesting. So the crisis itself is part of the process for them.
It seems that way for a majority, yes.
Yeah.
Now, it's worth noting Senator Soon immediately filed a motion to reconsider that vote.
Meaning this isn't completely dead.
Not completely buried, no. It signals the debate over this kind of structural fix will likely come back. It's just on hold for now until there's another opening or perhaps even more pressure.
Okay, so amidst all this funding chaos, the Senate didn't just grind to a halt on everything else, did it? They have other jobs, like confirming appointments.
That's right. It's easy to forget, but the confirmation process keeps moving, even during a fiscal fight. The Senate has that constitutional duty. And we saw a significant confirmation vote on Monday the 29th.
Who is that?
Michael G. Waltz from Florida. He was confirmed to be the U.S. representative to the sessions of the General Assembly of the United Nations.
And the vote on that, was it smooth sailing?
Not exactly unanimous. It passed 54 yeas to 45 nays.
54-45. So, like the funding votes showing division, this confirmation also just cleared the simple majority needed for personnel, but it wasn't overwhelming.
No, the partisan lines were still pretty clear, even on appointments. And looking ahead, the Senate actually had votes scheduled for October 1st on another nomination. Hung Cao of Virginia, nominated to be Undersecretary of the Navy. So the executive branch was still trying to push nominations through, despite the government funding uncertainty.
But what also caught my eye was the list of nominations that were withdrawn right around this time, September 29th and 30th. Quite a few.
Yes, that's also revealing. We saw Chris Pratt's nomination for Assistant Secretary of State pulled back. Eric Siebert for U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, and two different nominations for Brian Quintence related to the Commodity Futures Trading Commission.
Why pull them back right then?
Well, it could be a few things. Maybe concessions, part of some deal to unstick something else.
Yeah.
Or perhaps more likely it was just the administration or sponsors recognizing these nominees didn't have the votes, or that leadership wasn't going to spend precious floor time on them with the shutdown looming.
Clearing the decks, essentially.
Clearing the decks of potentially difficult confirmations, yes. A strategic retreat, maybe.
And aside from personnel, did any actual legislation get passed? Anything non-controversial?
Yes, some routine business did proceed. On September 29th, the Senate passed two bills relatively smoothly. One was Senate Resolution 1333, the Strengthening Child Exploitation Enforcement Act.
Okay.
And the other was Senate Resolution 2144, a bill aimed at improving safety and security for members of Congress, their families, and staff.
That seems important.
It is. And it passed after they agreed to an amendment from Senator Thune, offered for Senator Klobuchar. So that shows when there's consensus, things can move.
And the big one, the defense bill.
Ah, yes, the NDAA, Senate Resolution 2296, the National Defense Authorization Act. Consideration of that massive annual bill was also ongoing, kind of in the background of the funding fight. That's something that absolutely has to pass eventually.
Now, to really grasp the pressure cooker the Senate was in, you have to look at what the House was doing during this same late September window.
Right. It's a stark contrast. While the Senate floor was this constant battlefield of procedural votes, cloture motions, trying desperately to find 60 votes for anything related to funding.
The House was
Largely quiet. They were mostly in what's called pro forma session, basically, gaveling in and out quickly, or they were in a scheduled district work period.
Meaning the representatives were back in their home districts?
Exactly. That work period was scheduled from Monday, September 29th, all the way through the following Monday, October 6th.
So the House passed its version of the funding bill, House Resolution 5371, and then essentially left town.
That's pretty much what happened, yes. They voted and then handed the whole problem, the entire responsibility for preventing or dealing with a shutdown squarely over to the Senate.
They punted.
They absolutely punted, which just intensified the pressure on the Senate enormously. All the focus, all the negotiation landed right there, centered on that 60-vote threshold.
Did the House do anything else of note before they left or during that pro forma time?
Just standard procedural stuff, mostly. Introducing new bills, House Resolutions 5541 through 5562 were introduced, and filing committee reports on various measures.
Anything significant in those reports?
One report filed was on House Resolution 4070. That's a bill requiring the Department of Homeland Security to do a border threat assessment, specifically looking at the Tren de Aragua criminal gang. So some policy work continued, administratively.
But the bottom line is the immediate urgent crisis around the fiscal deadline, that was playing out almost exclusively on the Senate floor.
Entirely on the Senate floor during those critical days. They were the only ones in session trying to actively solve the funding impasse right up against the clock. Hashtag tag outro.
So looking back at that week, September 29th through October 1st, the overriding story is really one of, well, stalemate, at least when it came to the most critical task.
Definitely. The failure of both continuing appropriations bills, the Senate Resolution 2882 and House's House Resolution 5371 right on the deadline, September 30th. It meant the funding problem just rolled over, unresolved, into the new fiscal year, October 1st.
And the government technically entered a shutdown scenario, even if briefly or partially depending on agency plans.
Correct. And the takeaway isn't just the failure itself, but the sheer procedural effort involved. The constant need for cloture votes, votes just to proceed to a bill, motions to reconsider. It really highlights how the process itself has become a battlefield.
Just getting a bill to the floor for a vote takes immense effort.
Immense political capital and floor time, yes. It's all part of the leverage game now.
Which brings us back to that other failed vote, the rejection of the Shutdowns Act. The Senate said no to the short-term fix and no to the long-term automatic fix.
Both were rejected within days of each other.
So what does that tell us? If they can't consistently get 60 votes for a temporary patch, but they also actively vote against a system that would prevent the crisis, does this just mean we should expect this brinkmanship around the 60-vote threshold to be the default setting for budget deadlines going forward? Is this the new normal?
That's the lingering question, isn't it? Whether this appetite for crisis, or at least the preservation of crisis as a tool, is now baked into the system. Something definitely worth watching as these funding cycles continue.